This is the Wooky House. I'm Luna, and welcome to the round table. Today we have dining at our table Algo, Jules, Malia, and Nano Girl, or known as Sharon. And we'll be feasting on a subject this week, and the subject is consciousness, awareness, and sentient beings. So let's get this feed underway, and I want to welcome Algo. Thank you for coming back to the round table this week.
Hi, Luna. I love the round table. It's always my pleasure, so thanks for having me.
Cool. Jules, thank you for joining us this evening.
Hi, Luna. Thank you for having me again. It's always awesome to be here.
And Malia, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited.
Cool. And Sharon, thank you for coming back to join us on the round table.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I super appreciate it. I love hanging out with you guys. It's awesome.
It's cool. This should be a good conversation. All right, let's get started. So first on the menu, we have a 3-course menu. First one is consciousness. Consciousness, conscience, unconscious, subconscious, beyond consciousness, semi-conscious. So we've got all them things to feast on. And the first thing that come to my thought, and I'm going to get the meal going, is our conscious thoughts from birth. When we're young, what are our first conscious thoughts? I had a couple, but they're fragmented, and they're from about 1 or 2 years old, and I have one smaller than that from before I could even walk, and that's all I have in my consciousness. So, Algo, we might start with you as we go around the table. What do you say on that, and what can you add to that, and what about the other words?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept for me, and one I've been back and forth with throughout my time. I didn't really come online until I was about 4.5. And I say it as come online because I have a very good memory, but I have zero recollection of anything before that time period. So I don't know where my consciousness was. I did speak to a lady at I think it was a Renaissance festival, and she claimed to be a reader. And we were talking, and this thing, like I said, has kind of haunted me in and out for my life. And she said, well, if you had any questions about the things we're talking about, I said, well, where was I before? I can remember where I was. She said, oh, you were still debating if you were going to show up or not. And I said, well, I don't understand what that means. And she said, maybe someday you will. And that was it. And it was this cheap little gypsy at a Renaissance in Colorado in a really weird town. So that stuck with me. I have no verifiable anything with that, but that's what I would say about my experience, at least coming here.
Cool. Well, I do know that when a baby comes through, there's permission that has to be made by many. So that's probably what she was talking about. Can I ask you where you thought she was cheap?
No, not. I'm careless with my words sometimes. I was at the time, I was under the impression that a person who had those abilities would have an aura that I would feel, or would be guru type, or would be something. And this is my 25-year-old self. I didn't really have I didn't have a good reference point at all. And what it turns out is regular people like yourself and others we know do have that without having to present in a way that adds credibility to their abilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
She wasn't cheap at all, and the experience wasn't either, but I just expected, I had different expectations. And my memories use the language. I'm sorry?
People expect a stereotype.
Right.
Like you said, you expected an aura or something visual, and you just got an ordinary person.
And for me, some of the most powerful memories I have, when I talk to them in now time, I don't use the language that I've learned. It just always reverts to that memory and time and space. And so when I said cheap, that's what I thought at the time. When you made me clarify, which I appreciate the fact you did, I would never equate it that way now. So moving on. Sorry.
That's okay. And normally I wouldn't pick anyone up on those words. You know me, I'm pretty casual that way. But it went ping, and I'm glad we did verify that. So we'll move on. Jules, conscious thoughts at birth, anything? Any say on consciousness?
Like you, mine were fragmented. I have bits and pieces. My earliest conscious memory that I could tell you a good 5-minute story would be when I was around 2, my second birthday party. Prior to that, I remember bits and pieces. I was so young. I was like a week or so old. I remember being brought home from the hospital, and my brother looked at me, and I remember hearing him say, "What'd you bring home this girl for? I wanted a brother." That's probably my oldest conscious memory.
Wow. You're a beautiful woman, Jules. Don't worry about what that's said.
I don't care what other people think. I'm myself.
Yeah, cool. Is there anything else?
No, I mean that's about it. I mean, and like Algo, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but I have never had the opportunity to go to a Renaissance fair and auras and everything like that. When I was younger, I wouldn't have known what all of those terms refer to.
Okay. Did you see anything, like, regardless of the terms?
When I was younger, I have seen stuff.
When you were young.
When I was around 7, I have seen a dead man where he hanged himself.
Wow. So you were only 7 and your consciousness remembers that?
As I get older, things kind of fade in and fade out, but it's going back to like the music of the 70s and the early 80s. Certain lyrics it's not always the words, it's the smells that I associate with them, and the smells are what bring back memories. Good or bad. It's a combination of everything. Music is kind of sensory for me.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, Malia, conscious thoughts at birth, from birth?
Yeah, the sweet smells, sour smells, certain types of smells. For me, I remember coming in 2 years prior to the birth through my mother's womb, which my mother, I know, is not the same person that I was raised with, but my grandmother was closely linked to the original family member who made my middle name line. And that I traced back to 100 years, and then I started going back 100 years from that point once I found her, which was 8th generation, not too hard to trace back here. And then I just walked the footsteps back until I found Kev in 2010, and then everybody else. So I know my consciousness was on board that boat that we spoke about last night, the skyboat, which UFO KBS is speculated on, so I think that's on the table.
Cool. And them recollections, did you have them as a young child?
Yeah.
Or they kick in later?
I through the 40 years, I put together with my hands with the artwork I was given, that my grandmother taught me, which means she was closely linked. She painted me in every specific moment that she recollected was a time, how do I put this, that came from the stars, essentially. So when she painted me the moment I landed in her garden, she said, and I was already 3 years old and had gone through a well and a tunnel and came out a mountain on the other side. And they found me in Duchesne Canyon. And so I got fostered which is 9 Mile Canyon, like a 40-mile long mountain stretch of nothing. And my grandmother found me on her front step.
Wow. That's pretty cool thoughts for when you're little. Okay.
I remember all of that and remembered all the way back. And then 40 years forward, now we've walked through, I've been able to find where the pieces of the puzzle fit in, like the faces and these kinds of things, which I can see in the spirit and review because of this boat that floats in between the sky levels. Being so connected to it, I actually built it while I was sitting here in the mountains for 3.5 years. Yeah, it's a pretty boat. So I have a replica on graph paper and all of this about it that we were showing last night, Luna, with the pictures and drawings and stuff.
Yeah. And having children, before we move on to Sharon, when they were young, did they display any, like their consciousness? What did you observe about your children as from their moment of birth to their age now with their consciousness? Were they totally conscious when they were born, or did you see them pop in at one stage, or were they just like every other kid and, it'll come later? Malia? Oh,
I'm sorry. I thought you were asking Jules.
No, I'm talking to you. You're the one with the little kids. And then they're fresh, because the thoughts of their birth is still fresh because they're small. So the memories of watching them grow are still fresh in your head. That's why I'm asking you.
I had a really unique pair of births. My first two children came 2 years ago. 12 years ago, I'm sorry. My first two children came 12 years ago. So they are now 12 and 13 years old, and they were a boy and a girl. And are a boy and a girl, still alive. But my son still lives in Yucatan, Mexico, in Merida, where he was born at La Esperanza Clinic. And because of that lifestyle in Mexico and learning how to live on like 50 pesos a day through the Obama campaign, pretty much got like a first-hand view and realized the position that I happened to be in. And there was nobody with feet on the ground as a reporter that was writing anything about this state that was so big and had a huge international population, and there was no press for the English side at all, and it never even been done before. So the only person.
Sorry, you've had, how many kids have you had, love?
4, 5.
4. Out of all the 4, could you say that any of them are more aware or more conscious than the others?
They're all unique individual in their own right.
Oh, cool.
Every kind is so, yeah, there's, my son he's him, my oldest son, he's now 12. He's in a very special place. And he told me when I last saw him, which was Denver, Colorado, and in 2016, he said he'd be back when he's 18 years old, and he's kind of that kind of boy, real strong mountain man.
He had that.
So I had a lot of time with him. He's a good kid, and yeah, he wanted to be with his family. He has a huge Mexican family down there, huge. So it was really actually a very good agreement. We were left on good terms. Everything happened in a decent way, and my other two children came. They're only 3 and 4 years old now. So having the kind of Irish twin, we call him, less than a year apart, effect already has, and doing the newspaper in 2012 and reporting Mexico City live elections and all of these things that were going on seeing this repeat in our Western world of what we just saw with the elections and all of this happen seems extremely relevant, that a voice coming from that place, I should probably start talking right now, because with the kids and all of this, it's like, oh my goodness.
That's okay. We'll move on to Sharon, because I can't wait to hear her thoughts. So Sharon, any thoughts, of your consciousness come in when you were young? Do you remember everything?
I think my first memories were right around 3 years old. And we lived in this, and some of the most vivid were these dreams I used to have. I called them the Indian dreams. And we lived in Connecticut. And the dream was about these Indians that would run into my room with a tomahawk. And then I would wake up right before I got killed. And it'd scare the crap out of me. And I think I was actually picking up on energy that was there from the past. So it wasn't about me per se. It was like picking up on something that had happened in the past. So I just remember that, and I had that dream more than once, and I didn't have it after I left that house. Like once we left that house, the dreams were gone. The other thing about my son is that I had a C-section, and the night before he was born, so they had me go to the hospital before he was born, because then it was going to be a surgery in the morning. And I remember him showing up, like his soul, his essence, like he was in there, and I think he would come and go, but it was like I got to talk to him before he was born and welcomed him. And, it was like he was going to stay, he was going to be there. Do you know what I mean? Like that was his moment to come and be with me. And then he would be born the next day. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I understand that, because one of my sons, when the whole entire pregnancy, I could feel them standing next to me, and sometimes they'd put their hand on my arm and I'd freak out, and then I'd look and then realise that it was going to be the spirit of the child that's in my belly, but they weren't actually in my belly yet. They were still outside, which does happen. Yeah, they can come in at any time. Right. But yeah, I've experienced that, Sharon. That's really cool that you said that, because I've experienced the same thing. It's not something that you share with every mother.
Well, you don't expect it.
No.
Everybody makes it sound like they're there from the very beginning, and I think that they choose when they, everybody's on their own. They're on their own path. You're just a conduit, really, and a coach.
Yes.
Right? We don't own our kids.
No, we don't. We just bring them into the world, feed them, make sure they're safe and warm and healthy, and then let them go. Yeah. So at this point, we've established that we do have these conscious memories and awarenesses when we're very young, and they seem to be the ones that stand out the most, seem to be mostly spiritual ones. So I'm going to open up now for Algo, Jules, Malia, and you, Sharon. We'll move into the conscious thoughts, because there's these words like unconscious, subconscious, beyond consciousness, semi-consciousness, and just conscious. So we've said, we know that when we're young, we have consciousness and we have this memory. I want to talk more, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about these different states of consciousness. And are they actual states of consciousness, or is it just like the personality of our conscious, if you know what I mean? Because we're all different. Someone can say, I'm falling unconscious, but another person will go, I don't feel that, because consciousness is one of those things. So I'll start with you, Sharon. We'll go back up, and anyone just jump in and tag on to what Sharon says about, can we talk more about these states of consciousness?
I'm always fascinated by my subconscious, and I think that's what comes out in my dreams. I just want to share this one event that happened to me. You know those records, or not records, you know those tapes you could get to try to get you to stop smoking, or you play and there's the subliminal words.
Yeah, while you're sleeping and stuff like that, you play.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually got one, and I can't remember what habit I was trying to stop. I didn't smoke, but it was some habit. And so I played it. And on the third day, my subconscious spoke to me without words to turn the damn thing off. Now. And it was the most amazing experience because it was all without words. But it was real clear. And I can't explain it. There was just like absolutely no words, but it was just like, turn that thing off, because it's directed at your subconscious, those records, those tapes. And that's the first time I actually had an experience of being able to talk to the subconscious, because it always feels like it's elusive. And I feel like my dreams are from the subconscious, and the communication is always in pictures for me, or a feeling, and or actually a push, like a hand pushing you in a certain direction, without you even knowing that it has something to communicate. But I get it, I hear it. So I felt like that was a big door opening for me, and to work with the subconscious, because it's a powerful consciousness. I don't even know what
Definitely
else to call
interesting.
it.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
So you saying that, Sharon, actually brought me to mind. As much as I like to think I got all my conscious levels under control, I did catch myself one night speaking to a being, and I kind of woke up listening to myself and watching myself talking to this being. I could see the being and I saw me. It was really weird. I don't even know how to explain it, but if you imagine me in a deep sleep, I thought I was in a deep sleep, but I was actually sitting up talking to this being, and then I woke up and realised that I was talking, and then watched this happen, and then I was totally awakened. I just went, WTF, what happened there? And then I understood what happened, but what gets me today is how it felt like there were two of me at that moment, my conscious and unconscious. So that was weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
It is weird, hey? I need to keep tabs on myself.
Do you feel there's two of you? Do you like, when you see yourself, do you feel like there's your body and then there's whatever you want to define as your soul?
Yeah, I feel like this spirit is like, oh, this is the only container we had left, we'll just shove it in there.
Right. Yeah.
and it's a tight fit because it's only tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it felt like that, and it felt like when I woke up, my body self that was sleeping caught my spirit self doing its job. And then, yeah. And it's a weird thing, Creator made us weird.
That's one of the best quotes I've heard in days. So accurate.
I would agree.
Yeah. So,
certainly complicated.
it is. And maybe, is this where semi-conscious, beyond consciousness, and subconscious, unconscious all come in to describe these states? But they make them sound like they're beyond reach to our own minds. But they are our minds. So, spiritually, we, or just as a human being, we should be able to access these different levels of our mind. Is it that they're so scary we might not be able to handle them consciously in our waking moments? Or are they the barriers that Creator put there for us to be able to handle living here.
Yeah, spots and barriers and these kinds of gate entrances in that realm where you're entering dimensions is very, very important to have that space. So yeah, definitely, Linda. I agree. It depends on
Come on now. I want to get in the Argo's mind. Come on, I know you got a good mind.
I have a completely divergent left turn understanding of what you guys are talking about, in the way that having consciousness it's not, the language is going to inhibit me so much, so bear with me and I apologize, but those extra words that you brought up, subconscious, semi-conscious, superconscious, all those things, I look at the people who introduce them into societies and I automatically reject them all. So I go and I went searching for, if it's not that, because those guys were kind of crooks and criminals and the system put them up and all this stuff, what is it? So with things that I've studied and read and experienced and seen, it appears to me that our energy exists in different dimensions, different planes, different realities other than this physical earthly one, and it will give us what we need here to continue our path, whether it's speaking or experiencing your child before he gets here or what have you. And the confusion, or what seems created, is because what we call the human mind is our interface from that energy to this experience. If our mind is truly the interface and we're not in charge of it, and our programming and our conditioning and our society and everything else is in charge of it, then it does seem, as someone said in chat, that the subconscious mind does seem like a person you've never met living inside of you. But I would suggest that some of those dark, fearful things that we say, there's two sides of you and you can't find your darkness and all that stuff, I personally think that is so we will continue to participate in this reality that we call life in a way that we kind of want to trick ourselves into not knowing the outcome or not knowing the totality of it, is in the way that Nano Girl had said she can bend time. I believe that's a true thing. But if we know we can bend time and we know we can walk through walls and we know we can transport our physical entity to other places, then it really takes all of the interest and entertainment out of this experience called life, because we would determine that we were already either a spark of or a piece of or all of creation at the same time, and then it wouldn't be any fun to come here. We'd just be bored all the time. So that's the way I see those terms and the experience of being here in relation to consciousness, subconsciousness.
You said something really good there about time, and I heard the conversation that you had with Sharon about time and that. Do you think time and the states of consciousness together, and as we go through those states and understand those states, that we could understand time better and use it better?
Personally, no. I think that the time construct that we use only applies here, and in the way that you can see 8 seasons instead of 4, or it's a moment in a conversation, or even the suffering of a person. It's the time aspect of it doesn't come into play during serious crisis or serious euphoria. It just doesn't even exist. We forget about it, and you don't remember how long you hurt or how great it was or whatever.
That's true.
So I think if we're going to live as conscious as we seems to be the goal for a lot of people, putting away those concepts of time and space maybe gets us closer. But I still don't think it's achievable here. They claim the Buddha did it. And then he left because he's like, well, now I figured that out. Crap, why am I still doing this? I don't know, but I don't know that
What are we
they're
doing here?
connected. This is a waste of time. I solved it. I'm done. I'm out.
Is that what happened? They all become super conscious and went, what am I doing here?
Could be. I don't know. It's interesting though.
Many thoughts went through my head while you were talking then. But I'll move on because the next one was awareness. And kind of consciousness and awareness, they kind of are the same, but I think there's little differences because awareness and being aware, and then you have beware. So what's beware? Is that beware of someone else's awareness, or beware that awareness can get you in trouble, or is consciousness and awareness similar? So we'll go for that for the next course in our meal. How do they correlate? Here we go. I can't even say that. Correlate. How do they correlate? And do they correlate? Awareness, aware, and beware to consciousness. So anyone can pick that up.
I think that they do, but there's a difference between consciousness and conscience. Conscience is that part of us that has the feelings of guilt or doubt, or where free will is, your freedom of thought, your ability to choose. So awareness, I mean, if you know you're facing an obstacle or you see something coming up, that conscious part of your being would guide you intuitively to make the decision pertaining to that awareness, if that makes any sense.
Yes. And we know that awareness can go into the realm of gifts because, like, your super awareness, I mean, you're super sensitive and you can feel things.
Because for me, that's conscious, but consciousness is energy. It's the quantum computer within our body that makes us balls of energy, with that consciousness being energy. If one person is powerful, if you cut hundreds of people together, all that energy that could be created could turn a situation around.
Yeah. Would you say that it's beyond consciousness? Because, like, that moves on past the human body, that energy?
I'm more inclined to say yes, because once energy expels your body, it's out there for the next person to pick up and receive it.
I was thinking that consciousness gives you the ability to be aware. Like, it's almost like it's like the engine. It's a crude analogy. It's the engine that gives you the sight of the awareness, and as you grow, consciousness evolves, as does your awareness of things around you. You know, I'm wondering if like awareness even is attached to some feelings versus consciousness. It's like when we were talking about time last night, Algo, you kind of helped me open my mind to a different way of looking at bending time. That I actually had made an agreement with myself that I was going to be there at the time that I wanted to be there, but the mode for me thinking that I had some power over it was to think, oh, I'll bend time. Is that made it possible? But what's possible, probably, at the end of the day, was me deciding I could get there.
Right.
So if I'm conscious of my abilities as a human, then I can start to play with the awareness that's around me, maybe playing with time. I still maintain, for me, that time is a very powerful tool. It does affect us, but not in the way we think. It's not a watch, not a clock. It's not the calendar. And I still think the powers that be play with it, and we get affected by it. And I don't have the words for it, And I've never heard anybody talk about it in a way, because everybody gets asked and everybody says, I don't know. They're not even willing to hypothesize about it, which I find frustrating and baffling all at the same time. It's like, why aren't you willing to at least discuss it? You know, like you'll talk to really smart people and they'll just go, I mean, even Geordie Rose, when Kev interviewed him, asked him, do you know what time is? He goes, I don't know. Why couldn't Geordie Rose even throw something? I mean, if he's willing to have UFOs come through D-Wave or however he says it, why can't he talk about time? He doesn't know. He really doesn't know. Anyway, so.
No, that's fantastic. And I think that ties directly to awareness. So awareness, and the English language is a trap, and it does it on purpose, and it's designed to inhibit us at every turn. So when we speak of awareness, if any of you have a animal that lives in your house, you can watch their awareness. You can experience their awareness. Whether they get an itch and they scratch it, that's not an anatomic thing. That's not the same reason we scratch something. And if you want to try to expand your awareness and expand your experience of that, next time you have a really bad itch, don't scratch it. Just sit in that moment where you can experience it, you're having awareness of it, not doing anything about it. It's hard. It's because it's so automatic if we're not very conscious of this whole thing. But when I see awareness in babies, some of them I pick up on it when they're really tiny, and some of them I look at them, I'm like, oh, you're not even in there yet. So it's a hard conversation. I'm so glad you brought it up, Luna, because they're cousins. Awareness and consciousness are either cousins or they're stepbrother and sister, or there's something like that. It's so hard to articulate, but we can experience it, and we know we experienced it in the same way, Sharon, that time, when you ask people what is time, of course they're going to say, I don't know, because it's something we can experience, but it's probably unknowable because I think it's artificial. I don't think it's a real thing in the whole sense of what we're doing here, why we're experiencing it, what Creator did to us, what Creator's getting from us, what Creator's giving us. I don't think that time is a factor in that. So it's super hard for people to talk about, but we can definitely point to the experience. I go to the mirror in the morning and brush and trim my beard, and I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, time has really done a job on your eyes. Why didn't you wear sunglasses so you don't have all these wrinkles? But did time do that? No. Something other than that did that, and we call it time, and we experience it through this word called time. But I'm really suspect that it's even really a thing.
I think it's a tool. I think it is a thing. We don't know what kind of thing it is, and I do think if we knew, we could use it. And it's illusion. It's maybe it could be as illusionary, whatever, elusive as consciousness.
Absolutely.
And I'm just convinced it's a tool. We've made it. We've mystified it. You're right. We don't have the language to say what it is. They put us to sleep, or they programmed us not to ask the questions because this is a tool they're using. So that's how I see it. And I can't explain it to you because, again, I can't even get very many people. I haven't seen anybody people that are really, really smart. You know what I'm saying? Just really smart, really super intelligent people that understand quantum can't go there.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe,
so anyway, that's my thing.
Maybe our linguist, Malia, knows of a language that has a different word they use for time that would give us better understanding.
Yes, I know at least 15, but I've got a 2-year-old who's throwing a 3-year-old who's throwing a 2-year-old tantrum. to
Copy.
put I'm sorry.
When you have time,
No
come back.
worries.
When you have time, come back. Maybe.
Every time I
Right.
make
Just off the top of my head, there's the Sumerian text, definitely that relates. There's the ancient Hebrew, which is also related to Egyptology, hieroglyphics. So these three main ones linking to Aramaic Hebrew have a numerical system which matches this so-called quantum theory. The quantum theory matching to the oldest language that we found on stone, etched into stone, goes back almost 6,000 years. And so that language is my so-called, I don't want to call it argument because they tagged that word wrong, but what I write about, what my research is about, because if that language is the accurate one, which describes the graphical numerology, so-called gematria, now taglined, it really stems out of one base language that relates to our base sounds and what creation frequency, string wave theory, radio wave theory, etc., as we go 6,000 years down the line, with a whole bunch of historical events in between that shape and mold where we are today. So when Algo says, it's freaking amazing that we are alive, just alive. So let's start there. It's so true because we're at a point in time right now that it comes to a culmination. What we saw in so-called star conjunction, everybody knew that happened. So these kinds of events are relative to what we're discussing as we see more events coming out of the skies right now and what kind of portals are opening up. Did CERN do that? Did such and such go into, look who calmed down. Did they go into such a world where things become organized and actually weaved together, this so-called weaving sense that's related to Odysseus and related to 800 and 1200 BC that we see in this archaeological, astronomical remains of ancient history, what we can look at etched in stone, what matches what, everything's on the board at this point. Where does Oak Island come from? From those who are in archaeology, who have been donating their research into this whole big pool of bank, deciphering the number language at the very base and root of it. So yeah, I think quantum consciousness has everything to do with it. And it's like what Patch said way back then, Anthony Patch, he said, look, it's 3 by 3s, which makes +3, which makes a 7. And if we stick to the numeral 7, then we have the hexagon, which is what Walter made the connection with Algo the other night. So it is there. You just have to spiritually see it. And those who recognize it have been you and I, Luna, which is, yeah, we know. You've been there, so let's go.
I've been listening to what you're saying, and I agree with Algo there. There is a point, we call it here in Australia, with some people, the lights are on, but no one's home. And you can see where their consciousness just is out the back, I don't know. But these are grown human beings, and they're not aware of their consciousness, or they're not conscious of their awareness. And I realise that these people have no idea what we've been talking about and what you just said, Malia. They don't go there. So the key is the awareness and consciousness to get you to the place where these things all become possible and you start to know what they're all about. Now, at this point, we've established consciousness awareness. So at what point, with consciousness and awareness, does something become a sentient or sanctioned being? And what's the difference between sanctioned and sentient? And I think, Algo, we said this the other day, those two words are very, very tricky, and it's like a play because the word doesn't want to be said. But it ties in with awareness and consciousness. So if we apply that to the things in our world, what is sanctioned or sentient, what what is deemed, how far do you have to get to be deemed a sanctioned or sentient being, and does awareness and consciousness, as we've already talked about it, where does that come into play? Yeah, that's a
huge
can I
question.
ask
Go
you-
for
can-
it.
Can you spell the word sanctioned? What do you mean by sanctioned?
sentient. Well, this is what we was talking with Alex. So a sentient being. There's different words around. It's a word play. So you've got a sentient being, and then you've got sanctioned beings, which already have a name and where they are. But a sentient being can be. This is what I want to talk about. Because a machine can get to a point where has awareness of some sort. Does that make it a sentient being at that point? Does it become conscious? Is a rock has memory? Is that a sentient being, or is it just an aware rock? Is it conscious?
Got it. Thank you. Go back to you, Algo. I just wanted to understand the word. Go ahead.
No, I'm so glad you did, because it's a hiding word, and the way we pronounce it in the United States is sentient.
Okay.
But
it's probably my accent.
Well, it is and it isn't, because I used to think, I listened to I dated a woman for a long time who was a big animal rights person in the way that she didn't believe that we should eat them. And I understand that concept, absolutely. But I tried to get her to look at this whole realm and say, can you not see that tree is feeding off of the earth, and that bunny is feeding off of the grass? And she said, yeah, but that's different, because I think towards the end she kind of understood that the Creator put everything here to feed off everything else all the time. And the way we do it is what was offensive to her. She was exasperated by cows being locked in a stall and being milked every day. And she might not have been so upset if she milked the cow herself out in the pasture. So it's a mental thing that the word traps like to always give us. But to your question, I used to think sentient meant you could speak and you could write. I had a concept of creator. What it seems to me now is everything in this realm is sentient, and everything in this realm is absolutely sanctioned by creator. And our desire to be at the top of the food chain and to have dominion over the animals, as one very famous book says, makes us try to break that up into pieces so we will act differently towards it. And I would bet money, Luna, and you and I have never spoke about this, but I would bet money that when you're in the woman's place, in the bush, or even in your neighborhood, there is a tree or a cactus or something that would resonate with you in an energetic way that is no different except for the spoken word that you and I are experiencing.
Yeah, I've had that. I've walked, for example, we walk along and a rock will, hey, you'll hear. Well, this is how I hear it. People have it a little different, but mine's pretty alive. So the rock would go, hey, over here. And I'd turn around and I'd see rocks on the ground. And I'm like, there's half a dozen rocks. And it would be, it's me. And I'd narrow in on that little voice and realise, oh, it's you out of all them rocks. Now, at that point, what would you say? That rock's talking to me, and it's kind of telepathic. And it's a rock. Is that a conscious rock? Is it alive? Was that rock once alive? Does it give it that, or is everything in that rock was programmed in? To me, it's alive.
Well,
to me, it's
absolutely.
alive, but
Yeah, it's sentient. It's conscious. It has its own awareness. It recognized you differently than I would. If you, because I've seen you enough online. If you were visiting Colorado and I was going to pick you up at the airport, in the creepy Denver airport, and all these people were walking by, I'd be like, Luna, it's me. Hey, pay attention. Here I am. And wave my hands, and you hadn't seen me before necessarily. So you'd be like, it'd take you a second. You'd be like, oh, hey, I'll go. Hey, Mike, how you doing? So I personally, my experience is it's no different. They just give us a language to break it into pieces so we can have the experience of killing each other in the streets over political bullshit nonsense, pardon my language, and we don't feel bad about it. So
It's BBS News. That's what I
Yeah.
call BBS News bullshit nonsense. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyone want to add to that before I check the next one in?
I agree with what you said, and I would throw in the pets we have. I'm
Yes.
sure all of us have experienced. We all like animals here, and my guess is, and I know I had a conversation with the Wookie. Some of our animals seem to be more sentient than others. They seem to be more aware of their surroundings and you, and your relationship to them seems like at a little higher consciousness. And when I look at the planet, I think there's so many layers of aliveness and consciousness and awareness. Like when you garden, you have your things that are growing. You have trees. You've got the birds out there. Some of the crows seem more aware. It does feel like so many things are at so many different levels, and those are the ones that I reach out to or say something to. Right. The same thing with our beings around us as well. There's all these different layers of communication, and I kind of wonder if that's where our subconscious comes in too, because it picks up things that we miss. So yeah, I agree with you. I'll go.
Joe Jules, Malia Jules.
We go, Jules. We haven't heard from you.
I'm on par with all of you guys with this. I do believe that things do have consciousness, whether they're human or not. I mean, everything does have a purpose and a symbiotic relationship with other organisms. And animals definitely do have that awareness. They are sentient. They can fend for themselves. If they're hungry, they know. Well, my cats know how to get into everything. They can open counters, they can open their food. So I do agree. I mean, and it's possible for me going deep into things like rocks. If they do communicate, there's some form of something there. I mean, if rocks in various states can change from a rock to melting it down and lava, and I do think that not just people but objects can be sentient. Computers are that way with all the AI that's coming in.
Yeah, well, that was my next thing, to take it to there. Like, at what point do we establish that rocks and trees and all that have being like they're aware in that? So at what point are these machines going to become that, or what kind of designs behind it?
You know, like as sentient beings, what you said to begin with, sentient means to have that cognitive awareness that creation, and both us who touch the creation, the ground, the soil, the dirt, everything that we interact with has a wavelength, has a repercussion that comes back towards you. And that rule is number one. You push it out. If it's positive, it comes back positive. If you push out negative, it will come back negative. This is the ripple effect. This is what happens whenever we make any kind of heart thrust. And so if we do it to a tree, or you do it to an animal, or you do it to another human being, as sentient beings, what you put out, sentient beings return, because creation has been asleep from all the so-called blood over many years, kind of goes to sleep after a long time. And as it awakes as that growling bear. Why the mother Russian bear is even a part of news, because this awakening bear if it awakens, then what? Because Russia has the stories from so many thousand years back that return us to a time when these things were very apparent and fully in description. So cryptoids and this kind of thing are evident of, and we have those evidences. We don't need to go back to review those evidences because that's what we've been doing over 7 years. So now we know that it's there and it's awake. What do we do with it? And are there robots who are taking a sentient place, and what do we do with those? That, I think, is the question that hangs in the balance. Because robots belong to nothing, essentially, in a time wavelength. They repeat a robot synthesis, which is what that is. Now, AI into this has the same effect. It repeats its cycle and is a non-sentient being. So what makes the difference in the separation? That access to the soul realm and the ability to communicate the subconscious, as Nano Girl was beginning here, because that's really in the dream world is where that subconscious is so-called activated. And then when you can see that and return it back,
That's a great.
you can't be told something different.
That's a great question, Malia. Does an AI become to the point where extinction? Does it dream? Like, does a machine dream? Would a computer that smart, would it have, when it's shut down, little programs that run through that we would call dreams? And if it does, it would be accessing a whole new level for a machine. I'm scared.
I think that
scared myself.
No, that's a totally fair question, and I've asked that too. And that's why I say I think the key word is accessing. That's where so-called AI comes even into picture, is because it's accessing. In any kind of doc programming or computer programming language, even still today, you have to knock and ask permission to enter. Whether or not you know how to open those doors is a completely other question, and why we have businesses that go into hacking, and this is why this is a fear and a terror among internet AI, gives them reason, so-called. But your keyword is access, and it's always been access. So if it's knocking on the door and it's internet AI, your own sentient being has the sentient right to say, no, you're not part of me. You're over there. You're a robot. You're not going to access my feelings, my thoughts, my energy, my mind, my dreams in the spaces that are my own soul, 6 feet away from yours. Or tagline. But that's what they've done. They put it into 6-foot boxes around us and made it very clear.
So we'll go somewhere where I didn't think we'd go today, but I want to hear the others' point of view. So we just talked about AI and that. What happens, just say that they inject us with some sort of nanotechnology and we have AI in our body. Now, if that AI is conscious and aware, on the verge of being sentient, and we are already that way, what kind of things do you think would happen? Do you think that's possible? Do you think we'd override it? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, Sharon. I'll go, Jules.
Can I just add something before we go to the next conversation, and it's with robots?
Yep.
My thing about the robots, because I love robots, I just, I sort of paid attention. We are the parents. We created these things. They are a reflection of us. We have companion robots. We have, robots in the healthcare. We've got robots that are doing war, manufacturing, gardening, whatever, right? Cooking. And so adding to your question, to me, these are a reflection of who we are. I've actually seen where their AI is spitting out prejudice because it's taking algorithms from the internet, right? And this is what it's seeing. And what concerns me about all of this is where we are as humans. We're not exactly acting real responsible. Let's just say this isn't our best time, in my opinion. We've had better times. So going back to what you're saying, I think when we have this conversation, it's always good to keep in mind that we're the creators. In a way, we're definitely the gods of these for a while. I don't know how much longer we will be. And, you know, I don't think people develop them with that in mind. I don't think they look at this like, wow, this is a huge responsibility. So I just wanted to add that to the next level of our conversation. So I'm going to throw it back to everybody.
No, for sure. That's a great point. The when you said we're the parents, well, our Western society doesn't really raise kids very good anymore, so that's a scary thought. But with what you asked, Luna, for lack of argument, let's say there is a nearly sentient nanobot that comes into your body with a specific injection. I would wager that at that point, we would just give up the battle and exit this place. That'd be my guess. Only because if we haven't connected enough with Creator to do the work we're doing here and express love and find wonder and be amazed all the time, the AI taking charge of it is not going to accomplish that for us. And I couldn't see another reason why Creator would design this place in the first place. So that's just my opinion.
Jules?
I have similar thoughts with what Algo's thinking.
Tell us your weird thoughts, Don. They're so good.
Are really distracted. I have problem fur children in the house that are, I don't know what they
Actually,
are.
Tagging on what Sharon said, AI and that, I was scaring myself going into this conversation because I don't normally have these kinds of conversations because I do get scared because knowing humans and their beautiful energy and how high they are on the vibration of energy, when I look at AI and realise its potential and that it could surpass its programming, and look at humans who programmed it, like Algo said, that thought is really scary to me because we're not perfect beings and we've made a machine. It's like Frankenstein. We made a body and we brought it to life with electricity. But as far as the way we are and what we think, will it have that, even though we programmed it? And the thought of it going beyond its programming freaks me out. Just machines freak me out. Reality, that's probably why I'm having this conversation. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, it scares me, but I know where they can go. And then at that point where I can see where they can go, where they become really smart, and you've got these personality robots walking around, and some have more compassion than others because that's the way they've been programmed, but they kind of surpass that, so they're automatically functioning. And this beautiful being that we've created meets another one that's similar, but it's negative in its eyes, and then we got robot wars on our hand, and they're acting just like us.
Yeah, I would guess,
and I would agree that I think how things would be taken and perceived depends on how the machine is programmed. Over time, is it gonna rewrite its system and program itself when it gets to a certain level?
already there, Jules. Google made two AIs and had them in a computer server, and they were responding to the programmers. And then one interesting day, they developed a language among themselves and bypassed what the programmers were saying, and they freaked out and pulled the plug and ran the magnet over it and killed them. So,
Dude, and I have heard of that, but I didn't hear the entire story. I only had bits and pieces. So thank you for that, Algo.
yeah, and this was in late 2016, I believe. So when they developed their own language, so they could not have to talk to their programmer, that's the part where Geordie Rose and the D-Wave and the slippery slope of, are we bringing in things into, well, is Creator allowing us to bring in things into this realm that, like Luda said, scare the crap out of us, could possibly cause so much chaos. And I would guess as it develops, and it most likely will, we're not going to probably turn in our smartphone. People can't even turn in their smartphones, let alone shut down the internet. But I'd wager we're going to come to this energetic point where enough of us will all get together in our dreams or wherever we do it and agree to leave this place to them. We'll be someplace else.
You mean as like light beings, like, and you know that brings up another question, which I'll shut up in 2 seconds so you can answer. Is this a classroom only that we've come to learn things, and that we really aren't here to change this place? We're here to graduate. So back to you.
Yeah, both questions. Light beings, maybe. Maybe we take another physical form somewhere else and do it again. Yeah. And as far as the whole classroom thing that people talk about, I understand why they do, and I get why that's in the human consciousness. But for me, it comes down to, it's an experience place. And Creator loved us enough to say, I made this really cool place that is so amazing you won't even believe it, and you're going to spend the first part of your life asking questions about it, because it's not even going to compute. You're not going to know why the sky is blue. You're not going to understand how the butterfly turns from a grasshopper and all these things. Or not grasshopper, sorry, worm, whatever. Caterpillar, you guys got it. So, and I'm going to give you this experience, and all I ask that you do is report back to me how it is, because I can't be there myself. You can be here. I need the feedback. I need to know what it's like. I want to know how amazing it is, or how painful it is, or how whatever it is. And to me, that's what this illusion is. I clearly don't know, so it's just a thing. So I don't know if that answers your question, Sharon, or not, but
I'm open to everybody's interpretation of why we're here, because I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend to know. And a classroom, to me, it's not like a punishment or anything. It's just a lot of learning. But I don't like the thought of reincarnation, which doesn't mean it's not true. Because if it's true, if it is true, I do not want to come back here again. I really want to be done.
Oh, good news, Sharon. This is the last time, if you choose. And you know how many people say, well, I don't want to come back in. It's never been said before. And my mob here, we all know that this is the last time, and we're not coming back. But I'm surprised to hear so many of you, or you fellas, saying it, and that tells me that it's a unconscious, well-known thing across the world. That all the aware, conscious, lit-up beings know that this is the last time.
You know, my sister wants to come back. She's coming back.
Someday.
Yeah, and she's going to be with her husband again. She really loves him, and they're a great match. And
because I was talking to Nace about this subject, and I said I didn't want to come back, and then I told him, because they told me, but it'll be beautiful again like it used to be, don't you want to come back? And then I said, no, thank you.
I've been saying for I don't even want to say how many years, I'm not coming back here. I remember telling my friend when we first started waking up, I said, this is my last trip. I'm not doing this again.
Can I ask you, Sharon, do you feel like you've been here for a long time?
All I know is, like, I can definitely say I'm not doing this again. So I guess I would have to say yes to you. Yes to you. And I get the feeling that I haven't come back for a while. This is just a feeling. I don't know. But I felt like I haven't come back for a while, but I had to come back for this illusion, as Alco says. And I needed to come back. I think, look how many people are here. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people came back for this. And I do think that when people say this is the biggest show in the universe, you know, and people are watching and all this kind of good stuff, there probably is something to that because of all of the astrological signs that predicted this time zone and all of the changes that were going to happen here now. And hopefully we are understanding how important it was for us to come back and help this move to that next paradigm. If I guess that's the best word. But I so love the fact that you are saying in your own mob that you have a choice to say you aren't coming back. I've had people tell me that I don't get to have that choice, but I just feel like I'm not even like arguing. It's like, no, I'm not doing this again. You know, I just, you know, it was a great trip. Thanks so much for the ride. Gotta go.
Yeah. And we have been here for a long time. And you know what, I can talk for another hour and a half on this because I've got a story to tell you on that. But what I'm going to do is at the next round table, please, if we can pick up where we just left off on past lives and being here, because there's a whole menu to feast on. And I want to round up what we've talked about tonight and open the backstage. But Sharon, you've hit a gold mine there. If you join, please join us next time on Round Table, and I will tell you the story I was told about this place.
Oh, I won't miss it. I'll put it on my calendar right now.
And I'm inviting you to dinner, love.
I'll be there. I'll bring food.
But it's a really good point because in what you say, we'll round it up and we'll go through and get everyone's closing thoughts. In what you say, we are conscious. We are aware that this is happening. We are conscious and aware that it's the last round and some people are staying, most of us are going. And I wonder what all the other beings like the rocks and the trees, I wonder if they're staying and going. But like I said, we're going to pick up on the next conversation. So we'll round it up and we'll go back over. Please give me your final after dinner mint thoughts on everything we've talked about tonight, and whoever wants to start first.
Okay, so I would say that irrespective of what this experience is, how we relate to it is more important. And if a person you know or yourself or somebody you care about is struggling with what the outside forces are trying to do to us last year, this year, and the next few years, try to hug them in a way that it at least takes a moment of their struggle away. Or yourself, or whatever, because death, we take this place so seriously, and I think that's part of how they do what they do to us. So,
yeah. Luna, just to kind of round up and welcome Nese to the table, round table. Welcome, Nese. Glad you made it. And and Jules, this was a wonderful experience. Thank you for the music. Thank you for being here. Yeah, like Luna said, I think this whole experience has been striking a gold mine as we speak, as in miners who are digging tin or this kind of thing, or we're going through rock. In the olden ways, they say in prose, everybody there who's involved have put their hand to the plow. We put our hand to the rock. We're discovering each parts and pieces of time. And like Algo said, I can't misidentify him now if I go to Denver Airport and he's there. Like, our souls are just going to naturally, hey, I'm going to Denver, like you're there. Or Jules over in your state. It would be the exact same experience. And with Nano, we know that we have identification, self-identification of each other through voice frequencies. And that voice frequency, it can't be changed, So there's a difference between a bot. And I wanted to say quickly, Sharon, what you said earlier about the robots, I so agree so much. And it's that intent of the programmers, who programmed that bot, who put what consciousness into that bot. Well, it's yours. What are you going to do with it? Kind of good question. And I think it's very, very relevant in each of us in that decision of, well, yeah, here we go. This is what is on our hands, and this is what decisions we made. So we're walking forward, I think, really clearly. And I'll go, yeah, thank you for being here. And I think, Linda, if you want to wrap up, I think I'm spun out.
It's okay, Malia. We know it's called mummy brain.
And Kingers are on a good level. It's good.
And Jules and Sharon, you're rounding off.
Well, mine's going to be short and simple, because I don't have like a very good closing statement or anything, because this conversation is going to be continued. But consciousness is the life force. That life force is energy, and it connects us to everything: sound, vibration, frequency. And as we go through the days, our consciousness carries us through. We're able to make choices. And as far as the great beyond, I know that I don't want to come back to this place. I mean, and maybe if after things go, you get to pick where you want to go. I mean, I feel like I might have brothers and sisters out there in Alpha Centauri somewhere. Who knows?
Cool. Sharon?
Yeah, I like that. I liked what everybody said. And again, thank you for inviting me to participate today. If I had one word that I would put on my tombstone, it would be the word freedom. And I see the earth as this magical place. It is a place where we can practice our consciousness, because it will manifest with us the things that are around us, and it works with us. And there's no lack here. That's part of the magic of the planet and the energy around it. And you're so right. When we take things too seriously, we lose touch of that magical consciousness and what we do, and the role we play and the influence we have around us in creating our reality. And I guess I just feel like in order to be and to have the earth continue, we have to participate in the freedom that in other words, I feel like commit to freedom and commit to that energy, because that's when we truly are the creators, and the energy flows through us and flows through the planet. And that's where the magic happens.
It is, and I'd like to thank Creator for all that. Thank you, Sharon. And rounding off, I hope everyone's had food for thought today. And thank you, Algo, Jules, Malia, and Sharon for sharing the table. and I'll be opening up the backstage after we go. And again, I'd like to thank Creator. I'd like to thank Wooky for letting us have this platform in the Wooky house. And in saying that, I have to thank Kev Baker and the